Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another session of Exploration Tech. I feel like I say it every week, but I am really excited to have Jennifer White of the MJW Group with us today to hit on a topic that I feel like a lot of organizations take to heart. I mean, who doesn't want to increase profit and reduce expenses at the same time while focusing on process improvement? As always, my name is Jared Heckber. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Brilliance. I'm going to pass it to Lori McDonald and let her introduce herself.
Thanks, Jared. Yes, this is going to be a great conversation today. I started Brilliance a little more than 20 years ago. I went to school at Purdue University in computer electrical engineering and ended up through an internship at NASA Johnson Space Center, where I eventually worked as a flight controller for the space shuttle program. It was a really amazing experience. I ended up meeting my husband there. He also went to Purdue in engineering and also was a flight controller at NASA. And eventually he went to work for Rockwell Automation. And we ended up through a job promotion that he had relocating to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I was trying to figure out what could be as cool as space. And that was in 1998. And so I decided to start a web development company. And based on my husband's experience at Rockwell, where he managed their largest data warehouse, and my technical background, we found we were a really great fit for working with manufacturers and distributors, helping them to implement digital commerce solutions. And we've grown as a team this year. We made the Inc. 5000 list, which is exciting. And I'm really excited about the conversation that we're going to have here today, because as we've grown, we work with a lot of small and mid-market manufacturers and distributors. And many times we hear, and you know, we're really all about helping them in whatever their business challenges are. And we hear about a lot of challenges that are right up Jennifer's alley, which is why this conversation is going to be so much fun. Jennifer, you and I connected earlier this year through LinkedIn, through a mutual connection on LinkedIn. And when I noticed you were posting videos, which I always think is awesome because it takes courage. And not only were you posting videos, but you were sharing great content like tips and information, and you were talking about processes and data and making manufacturers and distributors more money. And I was like, this is someone I want to be connected with. So I'm just so excited to have you here today, and I'd love to let you introduce yourself.
Wow, how do I follow up after that? I mean, well, it's interesting, Lori. I did not know your history, and it's funny. My husband and I are engineers as well. We met at UCF in Orlando, Florida, both engineers. But he has since come over to my side as an industrial engineer. He
Nice.
was mechanical. So yeah, we started MJW Group back in 2017, and we do help those in the manufacturing, supply chain, and operations space increase profit by improving their efficiencies through expense reduction and automation. So we love operations management. We're all about the Lean Six Sigma life and continuous improvement.
Jennifer, so increasing profit, as we've said, we all, of course, want that. In our prep, you had shared that many times you get involved with an organization that has their hair on fire. So can you tell us, in those hair on fire moments, how does the MJW Group figure out where to start?
Yeah, so we typically work with the leaders in the organization that are at a director, VP, or C-suite level. So they have first eyes on, the numbers all the time because they're looking at how the business is performing, how things are running on a daily basis. So they know where we can come in and make a big impact. So we work with them to prioritize, what options do we have to improving your operations or your business processes from where you are. And that's where we come in and start with documenting their current state. So if they don't have processes set in place, we spend time with them and their teams to understand what is happening as is and to link that to a future ideal state of where they want to be.
Well, and so I know, obviously, from what you just said, like you're a really big believer in the process documentation. So how does documenting processes or improving processes help you to be more profitable?
Yes. So documentation of any sorts helps bring visibility to what isn't naturally seen all the time. So that's one way we encourage people, with documentation, because a lot of times people think they know what's happening or it's in their head, but it's not until you put things down on paper or start observing or doing data collection that you really understand what is happening and you have a tangible evidence to prove it.
I remember you said in our prep, you said data never lies, it always tells the truth. And I love that.
Exactly. Data is always a great storyteller. No matter what someone says, if you don't have data to back it up, you're not measuring it. And then if you can't measure, you can't fix. So you have to be able to see what's happening in your business.
I have to admit, I am a salesperson at heart, and we're pretty terrible and stubborn when it comes to maintaining our documentation. I think Lori can attest to that. I'm getting better, but I'm not there.
You're good.
So, as someone who's not the greatest, how do you get people to see the importance of them spending time on documenting processes?
Again, making things visible allows you to attack where you have a problem. You don't know if you have a problem if it's not measurable, right? You don't have anything documented. So in your case in sales, and with my history being in supply chain, I butted heads quite a bit with a lot of sales account managers and sales managers, because you guys are really flying at the whim all the time. So you have to step in and be that voice of reasoning and say, let's dial it on back a little bit. Let's discuss what needs to happen and why it's happening. So yeah, I could definitely relate to what you're saying, being around sales folks.
And again, my experience with working with engineers, working with Lori and the rest of our team, it's really shaped my mindset and how I need to do a better job of following that recommendation and documenting processes. So
you guys are great talkers. That's what it is. We don't like to talk.
We all have our
introverts,
strengths, right? It sounds like you spend time like interviewing people to help put processes together, right? And I would think that probably helps and just really like listening to them. And that way you're kind of taking some of the burden on of creating those processes, right?
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
step one in the DMAIC process, which is define, measure, analyze, improve, and control, you have to define the situation. And that requires you to put on a business analyst type of hat and gather data requirements, gather functional requirements, technical requirements to understand the as is situation. So yeah, during our interviews and conversations, sometimes it doesn't go as well, but people tend to open up when you make it more about them. Ask them, like, tell me how you do what you do every day, and how do you think your contributions play into the whole visibility of the organization. And it's very good to get perspectives from different individual contributors, people at the managerial level and your C-suite leaders, because everyone has a different perspective of how their contributions play a part.
When we talk about like managers or like different people in the organization, I know you talk about knowledge transfer and the importance of like making it efficient for organizations to transfer knowledge between people working on the front line and office personnel, like that might be on a computer. Like what do you think is crucial to make that work, knowledge transfer, more seamless?
Documentation again, and just effective communication. I mean, it doesn't help anyone to have all this knowledge in your head and it's not shareable amongst the organization, especially now that we see so much change happening in organizations with the age gap. Where baby boomers are retiring and then Gen Z and millennials are coming in and taking on those leadership roles now. You really need that knowledge transfer to continue throughout the organization so the organization can exist. Because I always say bad behavior equals bad processes. So we want to encourage a good behavior of knowledge transfer. There's nothing wrong with sharing what you know. I mean, we always encourage each other, learn from one another, be open. And I know during this time with the pandemic, I have opened myself more than I ever have, being on this planet. So, and I feel the fruits of doing that. I mean, you learn from others what you don't know.
Yeah.
No one has arrived on this planet. I don't think you will ever arrive to where you know everything and you don't need to learn anything else. So always keep an open mind when it comes to learning.
To your point, like being transparent about where things are today. I think sometimes we get wrapped up and like we don't want to write down what we're doing because maybe it's not perfect, or like we don't, you know what I mean? We
Mhm.
want whatever we put down to like, look really great.
Yeah, that's why we have rev control, right?
Right.
So revision 00, measure it for a little bit, put it out there, measure it again, come back. Now it's revision 01.
Yeah.
So this may seem like a simple enough answer, but I'm guessing you probably have some really interesting insight to share on where processes are being kept. Is it still paper? Is it digital? What are you seeing?
A mixture of both, depending on what type of organization it is. Some of the older organizations that came around after World War II, they are still paper. They love the paper pushing. And I see more of your tech kind of companies or startups. They are the ones who are embracing all of the new applications and that can integrate into what they're already doing every day. And they are becoming more and more digital. And there are several applications in the marketplace that can allow you to house all of your documents that are needed for processes, for formulas, for specifications, regulatory type of documents, so you can make sure you're in compliance. So there are quite a bit. I mean, I've utilized Qualtrics, Windchill. In my own organization, we house all of our documents on Google Drive, and then a lot of companies still utilize SharePoint as a repository as well.
I love how digital makes it easier, to have everything be findable in one place. And then when we're all instantaneously forced to move out of the office and work from home, we still have access to all our processes, right? So there's some real benefits to having things
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Making things visible yet again.
Make it visible,
Everyone can
right.
share in it.
When I talk to our customers and to prospects, to manufacturers and distributors about their greatest challenges, and in 2020, well, I think always supply chain comes up, but especially this year, I hear a lot about their supply chain challenges. I know there's all sorts of uncertainty that's caused from the pandemic and China and all sorts of things, right? And so I guess what tips would you give to an organization who is uncertain about their supply chain?
I would say, again, have an open mind with your customers and your suppliers. This is going to require you to get out of your comfort zone of how you've communicated with them before. So, your suppliers are upstream, your customers are downstream. You want to make sure that your linkage, which is you in the middle, is constantly being maintained. So, your relationship building has to step up now through COVID, because you want to be able to have real time information with what's going on at your supplier or your customers, so you know how to react at the end of the day. So that would be my greatest tip for supply chain, is just keep that value chain with suppliers and customers.
I know you had shared that one thing that hurts companies' profits is breakdown in communication between sales goals and supply chain. Can you tell us more about the common issues here, and for organizations who want to do better, what does good communication between sales and supply chain look like?
Yeah, let's lock ourselves in a room and don't come out for an hour or two. No, it Just talking to one another. I mean, the left hand and the right hand have to know what each other is doing. And in my experience, I've seen sales, they are very aggressive with the goals that they have. You want to get to a specific revenue within the quarter, within the year. And if you don't make it, you have to become really creative with what's going to happen next. At the same time, your counterparts in supply chain are trying to jump through hoops with all of the different goals that sales or the business team has. So I encourage everyone to just talk to each other, work it out. I mean, you can do that through sales and operations planning, or now it's dubbed integrated business planning, where you can bring in your financial team as well, and they could be a great referee in the middle to say, this is great or it's not. To them, they are the voice of reason because they are looking at numbers all the time, and they have history that they can apply to those numbers and be that voice of reason to say, this is aggressive sales team or supply chain. We're going to have to figure out what we need to do to meet the capacity.
I love that term, integrated business planning. Can you share a story of how a company got better at integrated business planning between their sales and supply chain team and how it benefited them?
Yeah, I have a great story to share. A client of mine previously, they had quite a bit of inventory that they were managing on their books. And it was a lot in retrospect because they had $7.5 million in inventory costs, but they were only making in the $40 million range for that year.
Mm.
So they accounted way over, the 10% that I normally see as a best practice of how much inventory you should, costs you should be carrying at any given time. So again, making data visible, because data is all around organizations. You just have to know where to get it, how to extract it, how to download it, and how to cleanse the data, right? Manipulating the data so it can tell that story. So once we came in and did that with the client, they were able to see which specific items had been in inventory for X amount of time. Some items were in inventory there for over 5 years, which is unheard of. It happens, but it's not a best practice, of course, because you don't want to keep carrying those costs year over year on your books. So with us being able to make that data visible, show where we have some redundancies in some of the products that was being carried or new products that was coming aboard, we had to make some decisions on, do we fire sell this inventory? Do we continuously push it out to the marketplace at a discounted rate? Or do we just find a private label type of buyer that may want to take all of it at a discounted rate? So you need to have those conversations with sales, because the less amount of inventory you have, the more working capital you have freed up to put toward other activities in your organization.
That's crazy. That's very cool.
Well, it's really cool. I love it because it's all about like working smarter, not harder, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes you're using data to make the organization better and aware of like what actions, like what's our strategic next best step to help the organization be more profitable. So
Right. And I mean, if you have access to the warehouses or distribution centers, I always bring salespeople out to the floor where the work is happening. In my world, we call that a gimbal walk, right? You go to where the work is happening so you can lay eyes versus just seeing what's on a sheet of paper. So once they can physically see, oh, this inventory really does exist and it's taking up room and it's not turning, it's not selling, yeah, we do have a problem. We need to think more strategically about the certain amount of items we do bring in, and does it contribute to the overall category management and the profit and loss for this specific unit.
we talk about making data visible, and I know one of the challenges with that, sometimes for our clients, we work with companies that might be on a legacy ERP, which can have some challenges when it comes to, I mean, you can still get to the data, but it might take a little more work.
Yeah.
So how do you recommend that organizations evaluate, like when is the right time to look at a new ERP? And also, what are there specific ERP systems that you work with?
Great question. We're actually working with a client now that is evaluating a mid-tier ERP solution for some of the smaller companies they've acquired over the last couple of years. And so when is the right time to push that button? I would say when you have the complexity of spending money on maintenance, you're spending money on resources to maintain that software, with the vendor. You have too many add-ons or plugins, whereas one solution can probably fix all of that. And also, you're having to write SQL code to process jobs during the night when people aren't in the system as well. So if you're finding yourself having to spend time and money and putting too many resources on those activities, I would say it's time to press the button. But on the flip side of that, implementations aren't easy. There's a lot to, again, document with the business processes. So when you start to go into parallel with both systems, you're seeing what's in your old system and what's in your new system.
Yeah, that's such a great point because I know for some of our clients, they've been on the same ERP system for so long that some of the people that are kind of in charge of it weren't there when it was implemented, and many things have been done over time,
Yeah.
to modifications have been made. So it's hard to even know, when they go to to understand their requirements, to even know all of what
Right.
the requirements, all the things that they've done to it, not to mention the fact that do they really need to do it the way they've been doing it, or is it time to look at a new process that might better fit their new ERP? So
Right. And your processes will change, right? Because no two ERPs are exactly alike. And I guess for me, I am biased toward SAP. That is one of my favorite ERP tools to utilize. And I've been involved in a couple of implementations with SAP. And I'm a huge advocate for any ERP system, really, because it allows you to see all of your data in one centralized location. It doesn't matter if you're in HR, if you're in finance, if you're in accounting, if you're in supply chain, even sales. There's some CRM functionalities in ERP systems, so you'll be able to see it all in that one system.
So Jennifer, you get involved in business transformation, which I think is really fascinating. In prep, you mentioned that sometimes organizations don't even realize that they are in a business transformation. Why is it important for those organizations to define the transformation itself?
Yeah, because the only way you can manage change is to realize you're in one, right? It goes back to being able to document so you can measure accurately, right? So within transformations, there's usually three types of events that cause a business transformation. Right now, we're in one with the pandemic. I'm sure everyone can agree, yes, my life has changed personally and work-wise. So that would be considered a strategic event. Also a change in the business model. So say you went from manufacturing in-house a lot of your products and you decide, oh, I just want to buy from a turnkey supplier now. So you're just going to distribute products. Products are going to come in automatically wrapped and ready to go. You're just putting them in a box and putting it on the trailer and it goes out the door. That's a change in business model example. Or you can have mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures, right? Where either you're consolidating or you're adding more people, more processes, more business units to your organization. So being in a business transformation, you just have to recognize what type of change it is, evaluate how you're going to approach the change. It's not fast, it's not quick. A lot of these transformations are, an 18 to 36-year plan that has to take place because you're constantly evaluating people, processes, data, and the technology that comes along, especially with the merger or acquisition. If you acquire another company, you're inheriting all of those things at the same time. You have to figure out how to put the puzzle pieces back together.
you had referenced the concept of value creation during a merger acquisition. Can you touch on that a little bit, the factors that will contribute to value creation?
Right. So when you think of value creation, here at the MJW Group, we like to look at it as being innovative, creating something that hasn't been done before. I like to refer to Henry Ford's quote where he said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So we went from horses to Model T, which you can only get it in black. He said again, you can have whatever Model T you want as long as it's black. So how do you create that? Like, what prompted him to do that? People have to, I guess, intuitively get in tune with yourself when it comes to value creation, because your ideas turn into thoughts, which turn into things and feelings. And then next thing you know, we have computers, we have Teslas now, we have more electric cars that are coming our way. And the way we were doing things in automotive is a good example. We're in a transformation with automotive right now because we are slowly moving away from only gasoline fueled type of cars. So within the next 20 to 30 years, who knows, we may not be going to BP or Chevron anymore for gas. Everyone can just plug in their garage and you go off. But that's a great example of value creation, because it not only is looking at the productivity, whereas we always want to save more, do more with less, obviously, save time, reduce waste, reduce variability. But what are you creating at the end of the day that's really going to move your organization or really move the way everyone's running around today on this planet? That's what value creation is.
I love it. So at Brilliance, we build, digital commerce solutions, and we're focused on helping the organizations we work with to continuously innovate. And the reality is, like people think about digital as like your website, but it's
Yeah.
so much more than that. And you can't pull off digital innovation unless you have all of these systems and processes like in place to support. Like it really is business transformation is
Yeah.
really what it, like. A lot of people talk about digital transformation, which kind of can be a buzzword, but the reality is it needs what you do and what we do. Like it needs all of it in order
Yes.
for companies really to be innovative, because their operations have to be able to support
Yeah.
what they're offering online. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you can relate to like Amazon. Amazon's a perfect example, and
Right.
not a lot of people know this about Amazon. I don't really consider Amazon, A through Z with the smiley face. I don't really consider them like shipping goods type of company. I mean, I don't know what they really call themselves, but their logistics, their supply chain, I mean, their consumer products, I mean, I consider them a data analytics company.
Mm,
They
yeah.
probably have the most data on anything and everybody on this
Yeah.
planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, great point. And yeah, I know, like they are able to predict like where people will buy certain products to stage inventory, right? And to your point, that's using all the stuff that you're doing
Yeah.
to be smarter about how to serve customers better. So really
Yep.
cool.
Exactly.
What tools you would recommend for the data that is collected and analyzed?
Depending on the size of your organization will dictate, usually what type of tool you need to have, because with tools come complexity in maintaining those tools, right? You need programmers or people that can code, people who know how to extract the data. And like I was saying earlier, you need to know how to clean the data and know when data has misrepresented characters in it or it's flawed. So there are a couple of tools out there. I mean, Excel's a great one, obviously. But if you want to move past Excel and be a little bit more advanced, you have a lot of business intelligence tools that are out there today, such as Power BI, or even in Excel, you can utilize Power Query and Power Pivot to, tap into your different data sources and extract data out of it. There's MicroStrategy, Tableau. There's a lot out there in the marketplace now, more than ever.
before we wrap here, Jennifer, for audience members that are interested in getting in contact with you, is there a best way to reach you that you'd like to share with them?
Yeah, you will always find me on LinkedIn. I'm always there all the time.
There you go. So as mentioned, you can find Jennifer on LinkedIn as well as the MJW Group on LinkedIn as well. Please give them a follow. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time. Jennifer, special thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
This was excellent,
so
really
welcome.
wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.